Hey guys, it has been quite a week. Um, I've been quite bombarded with emails, and those that I've received that are, like I said, civil, like they're not personally attacking or trolling. Um, I am getting around to reading, and of course, I will address them right back to you, talk about it in my videos, whatnot. There's actually a really interesting question that somebody sent me that I need to look into myself. So I am looking forward into doing that. As those of you who watched them thus far know, I did finally record the video on the Catholic Mass versus the Last Supper. And then my last two videos, I don't know what's going on. I recently got a new phone, right? Because I'm working for a very the largest retailer, Verizon, actually. And so I was finally able to get my phone changed out from what was, which was pretty much dying. And I'm still trying to figure out how to work it. And so it's been cutting off videos earlier than usual, so they've been ending. Strangely, like I'm not able to like conclude before it finishes because I'm not used to the timing on it, and sometimes it gets a little out of focus and other things like that. So, I apologize for that. I'll figure it out eventually. This video is going to be another of just kind of me talking about my experience, stuff that I'm learning, and whatnot, and things that, I think might, be beneficial to others who might hear it. Nothing intense tonight, nothing regarding, like, Catholic doctrine tonight. Just, I get through one big thing and it wears me out, and I need a break, and so, there is a general topic that's been brought up. Some people, and the reason I say some people, like, obviously if this isn't you, it's not you. It's because I don't, like, unless someone were to give me permission to, I don't want to, like, reveal people's identities. I just am not somebody to really do that. Like, if you're an abuser from my past, like, and it's like, for example, like the Eitenauer scandal, I don't care about not mentioning his name. I couldn't possibly care less about mentioning his name and people knowing that, or naming the Diocese of Arlington, or things like that. I don't have a problem doing that. But, when it comes to people emailing me with serious questions or things like that, then, I'm not going to get on here and, say, hey, give your name away, or whoever you are. So there seems to be this confusion that I have this happy-go-lucky life now, and I don't have any suffering or problems. And again, of course, the Catholic would see this as a terrible sign, because suffering means that, you're on the right path, and being miserable and deteriorating means that God is with you and all is well, and keep slamming yourself into that brick wall over and over and over again, because that's the right thing to do. Because it is. And don't ask me. Don't ask any questions. You just listen because I told you so. My life is not perfect. And I do suffer. I have problems. I have stress. I even have some anxiety still. Just this week, I actually had a really rough week. It's hard to, like, complain or really call anything very difficult just because of what I came from and what my life was like before. So yeah, I really do have a hard time, like, saying something's difficult or hard, or talking about or bringing up suffering, just because I'm so blessed at this point and my life has completely changed, and I just have, there's so much good that, like, I could never, the stuff that I struggle with just is so, it's so minuscule compared to the blessings and the good things. And so I do have problems. I do have sufferings. I do still suffer. I'm not, like, in some delusional, moony, oh, everything's wonderful, That's ridiculous. I've brought up multiple times how difficult it was to make the decision to leave Catholicism before I knew everything that I knew now. It was very difficult to stand my ground with certain people in certain relationships and accept that I was losing friends and other things like that. And my own like emotional attachments that I had to what I was used to, despite how evil it was and despite all the suffering that I went through, I was in that from infancy and I made attachments. I came across, there's a lot of Facebook memories that come up, the way Facebook's set up, it reminds you of things that you posted that day, like 4 years earlier, 5 years earlier, 10 years earlier. And there was one today of photos that I posted of, it was the 4 of us older kids. So it was my older brother and sister and myself and my sister Noelle. Noelle's like a baby in the stroller. And we were at some Catholic shrine. And there were pictures of us like standing next to these statues. And there's one of, the Queen of Heaven. And, little innocent, probably 5-year-old me, 4 or 5-year-old me in my giant 90s jacket and jeans, I'm just like hugging this Mary statue, this Queen of Heaven statue. And it's just sad. It really is. And I know that my parents don't know what this is. So it's not like I'm blaming them for this. But it's just like when you're little and you're innocent, I mean, if you could even call it that with everything that was happening to me at that age and way earlier, someone sits there and tells you, this is Jesus and Jesus loves you, and this is Mary and Mary loves you and Mary will protect you, and this and that. You're gonna form an attachment to that, especially if you don't feel protected and you don't feel safe and you don't feel loved. You're going to attach to that. And I developed very strong attachments, not so much to the Queen of Heaven. I'd say any emotional attachment I really formed with Mary, the Catholic Mary, would have been when I was staying in Lourdes, when I was living in Lourdes. But still, something always bothered me. Something always so. It's funny because my sister Noelle and I, the two in the family who are not Catholics, kind of realized, both of us, that we both had the same kind of, I don't know what to call it, like almost a deterrence. Like, we always wanted to go straight to Jesus. We always thought of Jesus more than Mary, more than saints, more than anything. It was always Jesus. And we just wanted to pray to Jesus. We'd just rather pray to Jesus than... And we had that draw, and I honestly consider that a grace from God. I do. And of course, that was used against me, and all sorts of Catholic leaders brought that up and told me it's because I had demons, and they didn't want me to pray to Mary, and so I should try harder, which I did. I always tried harder. I always tried to form some sort of connection. I always tried to form some devotion or this or that. I forced so much, tried so hard. And in the end, I realized, this was a good thing. This was God-given conscience, direction, whatnot, from the time I was little, telling me, no, you don't do that. You just come to me. Jesus was telling me, you just come to me. Focus on me, not on that. And it's just, I do get a mixture of, just looking back, and when I do look back, because I don't look back that often, I don't dwell on my past anymore. My past doesn't live with me in my present like it used to. But, I just look at pictures like that and remember, and I just think, I was innocent. I didn't know. It's the same, with anything, with any religion, with any cult, with any organization like that, especially if a child is not nurtured and protected, which we weren't. I love my family, but there's not there's probably only one sibling I could think that might be in denial about this, but I don't think there's a single sibling of mine that would disagree with that we were not nurtured and protected growing up. And, yeah, so I have my own difficulties still, when I have like memories about things that come up, or like Christmas is coming around, right? I mean, one of my biggest things that I love doing, this huge like thing, was going to midnight Catholic Mass on Christmas Eve, and like the human side of me, like I think about things like that, it's almost like a darkness, it's a heaviness, but it's an attachment and it's nostalgic. And so it's not like I don't struggle with those things. In day-to-day life, of course I struggle. And the drastic things that have changed, like I'm talking drastic things. Like I was, I'm trying to be more balanced in the way that I'm talking about these things, because while I realize I was in no way mentally stable before I was saved, before God pulled me out of my situation and healed me and delivered me, I was in no way mentally stable. At the same time, I wasn't like a complete basket case. So, I realized that in a lot of ways, people will try to use things that you suffer, mental illnesses or different things, to make you think that you can't make decisions for yourself. You can't know anything for sure. And you just got to trust other people, and what they're telling you to do. And, there's different opinions. I mean, there are people who say people who are crazy don't know they're crazy. I always questioned my sanity. Always. Just the intensity of episodes of things that I dealt with on a mental level, like the deliverance that I experienced, like when I say deliverance, when I say liberated, I mean liberated, just liberated. I don't know how much, like there's certain things that I'm quite positive I could say, like, oh yeah, this is demonic en route, or, this is mental en route, or, a mixture or whatever. But because Jesus doesn't just liberate you from one aspect, that's one of the amazing things that I realized, is like Jesus didn't just deliver me from demonic problems. He healed me of so much mental instability and damage that was done to me. So many wounds, so much trauma, so many things like that. Physically healed me of things, just as a whole, and that's something that I was honestly never expecting. And so it's hard for me to like pinpoint and say, okay, well, this was demonic, or this was mental, or this was this, or this was that. But I can definitely say that, instantaneously, things that had been going on my whole life and intensifying just stopped. They're just lifted off of me. Like hallucinations and night terrors. And when I say night terrors, I mean being physically like attacked, like feeling things physically happening to me, physical pain, like horrifying things, panic, just utter panic all the time. Before I was freed, I was almost in a continuous, constant state of panic and paranoia. Like it never ended. Like even I realized it. That's how bad it was. I would look out the window like every 5 seconds. Every time a plane would fly over the apartment building, I would think we were being bombed. Every time when I was in Myrtle Beach, they do fireworks all the time. It's like the same day every week. And even though it's the same day every week, logically, I just didn't put two and two together. Every time they'd go off, I'd dart out into the room and freak out and just be like, what is that? What is that? And look out the window. And just always paranoid, always scared, always in a panic. I just go into these episodes of, like, just this, I don't even know the word for it, guys. I don't know the word for it. But I definitely, like, I can't remember if I mentioned this in videos before, but I had started making videos talking about what was happening to me, because I did see, basically, unless, barring a miracle, the inevitability that I was going to either die by suicide or a drug overdose, or I'd get killed by somebody, clients that I was seeing and things like that. So, I was in just so many dangerous situations. But one of the things that really did scare me even more than an overdose was, the episodes of complete darkness that I really did fear that I would take my own life in a state of complete delusion. Like, I think I knew that it wasn't something that I would ever do in my right mind, obviously. But that's where I was. I was literally at the doorstep of death, and I was there for a very long time. And God's the only one that kept that door shut. I can tell you right now. I thought it was never going to end. All that stuff was lifted off of me. All the resentment that I had built up inside of me, despite not wanting to be resentful, despite trying to forgive, like willfully saying, I don't want to be resentful about this, mainly the main resentment I dealt with was, Catholic leaders who had abused me, the years of torment I was put through with the Catholic rite, solemn rite exorcism process, what these people were putting me through. I'm not going to go into too much detail tonight about that, but again, like I said, these things are in the works of coming out, and so more details are going to be released, and yeah, I just can't go into more of that right now. But bottom line is, I believed that this was Christ's church, and I believed that this was Christ, and Christ gave these men the authority, and that they were the authority. And so, despite willfully trying to not be resentful because of that, because I wanted to be a good person and I didn't want to offend God, as a human, like emotionally and whatnot, that just builds up. And spiritually that builds up, because that's not doctrinally correct. Again, there's a difference between like a person, an individual, doing something wrong or falling from grace or harming you or something like that, and then blaming that on God. Like, obviously, don't blame anything on God. That's just stupid to do. I mean, it's human sometimes, but you really shouldn't willfully, it's just not a good idea. Because there's nothing bad that's his fault. He's just all good. But when you 100% believe that is God, I mean, these people are, in persona Christi, they are Christ on earth, they're in place of Christ. And, in your head, you're so messed up that I was so messed up that I thought that was logical and doctrinally sound. And it wasn't. But looking at an individual or people in general is one thing. But I don't judge, like I said, I do not judge like Catholics. I do not judge my family members and friends, or even people that, consider themselves my enemies, or that I don't like you at all, from my past as a Catholic, at St. John's Parish. There's a ton of you that I just do not like because you're horribly mean to me. You didn't even know me. You judged me, you talked about me, you blame me for things. Again, you didn't even know me. I don't think I ever felt so unwanted and hated and disgusting anywhere in my entire life as I did at St. John's. And, that's not something I connect with God. Now, when it comes to leaders, when it comes to a religion, when it comes to a church as a whole, you most certainly can judge that. And Christ tells us to judge that. And he tells us how we know, because when somebody tells me, like they used to tell me, oh, well, yeah, these priests are raping little altar boys, and, oh, well, all the churches are doing that. That's BS, guys. That's BS. Okay? There's creeps everywhere. There's creepy men everywhere. But there's nothing like in the Catholic Church with these priests, these homosexual priests that are molesting little boys. Okay? And even raping girls and women and different things like that. No, there's not. There's not. There's just not. And I've done my research on that as well, outside of Catholic Resource as well. But, Jesus wouldn't say, you'll know my disciples by the love they have for one another, if we couldn't judge who his disciples were, by the fruits. When he talks about good trees producing good fruits and bad trees producing bad fruit, it's very cultish. It's a cultish mentality to say that no matter what an organization or leadership does, because they're divine, they have authority, they have this and that they can do whatever they want and you can't question it. And they can get away with whatever they want. God will judge them later, but you got to continue submitting to that. and that's not right. Jesus did not say that. In fact, he spoke against that. This is what gets to me about a lot of people that I'm hearing from lately is like as if you think Jesus just said things for no reason, or like he didn't mean them. And I'm not talking about parable versus literal. You know what I mean? Saying that you can't, this whole Catholic idea and mentality that you cannot question Catholicism. There's, I think I brought this up before. I used to carry around this Pietà prayer book. That all these different prayers and novenas to Catholic saints, like hardly any of them to Jesus. It's mostly Mary and Catholic saints. And there's this whole section in there, like this prayer for priests. And before this prayer for priests, it's like this whole page or two telling you how it's sinful to ever say anything negative about a priest because A, B, and C and all these wonderful holy things about him, and he's got Christ's authority. And so even if a priest, rapes you or uses exorcism to rape you, or, manipulates you or abuses you or molests your child, or, anything like that, you can't say anything bad about them because they're in persona Christi, that's a cult, guys. That's a cult. And that's made up. Again, these are prayers, novenas, concepts, things that they're constantly making up. They're constantly making up, just like the smoke and mirrors of, one day it's bone fragments, the next day it's the true cross, the next day it's Jesus's umbilical cord, the next day the cloak of Juan Diego is alive. It's alive. It's got human DNA. And nobody sees a problem with this. This isn't a problem to anybody. It's one thing after another. And it's the purpose is to keep you distracted. It's to keep you distracted from what's really going on. And you're focused on all the wrong things. We're not meant to be focused on these things, guys. We're not meant to be focused on other people, no matter how holy you think that they are. We're not meant to be focused on relics, we're not meant to be focused on, finding this or that, the most important thing to you should be knowing the truth, and you guys, Catholics put so much time into relics and different signs and wonders and miracles and things like that, but you don't put time into reading your Bible. And I don't know how often this is going to come up, but it really is the core of my life, guys. The Word of God is the core of my life. And it's how I know how to live each day. It's how, when I'm having a hard day, and I have my hard days, like I said, I had a really hard week. I had this horrible infection in one of my teeth, which, one of the bad results that, I'm still dealing with from my past is my teeth. And this horrible infection. It got super badly infected, and I've been working really hard with training and balancing things, which I'm about to be out of training and on my own, and things will be a lot more calmed down. I'll be picking my own shifts and things like that, but I haven't been getting a lot of sleep, and I had this infection, and I waited way too long to go get an antibiotic, and now I'm on an antibiotic, and I really don't feel well, and I've been dragging, and like I said, I'm tired, and I had a nightmare the other night, and, there are things that go wrong, physically, or in life, or like I said, I get anxiety, I have struggles, I miss people, I'm human. It's not like my life is perfect. The thing is, it's having the inner strength that is not of myself, but of Christ, that gives me the strength to continue anyway, and want to continue, and see the good, and see the positive. It's not something that's forced. That's the difference to me from when I was Catholic. There was this constant, I gotta force myself to see that. I just gotta force myself to not be angry and not be resentful. I gotta force myself to be like this, or, be holier, or be this, or be that, and now it's like, it's funny because in a way, I am human and I live in a fleshly world, and, some things, there's so much that's natural to me that, isn't best for me, or isn't, what God wants for me. And, I do have to struggle with that. Every Christian does. But at the same time, the gratitude and the joy and I don't even know how to describe all of it, guys. Just this peace. I don't know what other word there is for it. It's a peace. It's not an infatuation. It's not a high. It's not, I had this one period of time during Easter of I believe it was 2015. It was before I moved to Myrtle Beach. And I experienced this lifting of symptoms and problems and, whatnot. But at the same time, I didn't realize the difference. Now I realize the difference. But I was on some sort of weird high. Like, it was almost like this, something gave me a high. Like, I feel like it was kind of similar to a drug, but it was like demonic in nature. And I was not at peace. Like, I had this high, like this positivity, like, oh, I can breathe, I can sleep, like I can fly, like I just was like running. I remember not being able to like sit still and eat a meal because I had to constantly be moving. I couldn't sit still. I could not sit still. Like, I remember like scrubbing every corner and inch of the apartment that I was in, like every morning for no reason, and taking walks and doing all these things that appeared normal and better, and it made me appear normal and better. And in reality, like, I wasn't. There was just some weird thing going on there, and it wasn't peace. Like, it wasn't real liberation. And of course, it was very temporary, and it did not last. And things started crashing down very quickly, and I started having symptoms very quickly. It wasn't something that lasted, and I was in this terrible situation, relationship, whatever you could call it, with this other Catholic guy who I believe is just as tormented, if not worse, than I was. And this is what happens in cults also, and in spiritually awful situations. When you're just completely lost and you've got demonic spirits and other things like that going on, there's like, you just end up in situations with people that is not good for you. And even if you have the best intentions, even if you have the best intentions. And it's a very sad situation, in a lot of ways, a very sickening situation. But there was all these things going on that was saying, this is not good fruit. And like, in my mind as a Catholic, I'm sitting here thinking, oh, well, I'm able to go to Mass, or I'm going to this adoration, or, I'm able to receive communion, or this and that. And I'm seeing that as good fruit, because I was told that's good fruit. But when you find out that that's not good fruit, that's actually pagan ritual, and you look at everything else, you realize, no, this isn't good fruit. Nothing good is coming from this. Guys, it was just like probably before I really just crashed and deteriorated into nothing after that, because that situation led up to Oklahoma. And Oklahoma is where, like I said, I just had this split. Like, I've never even told any soul on this earth everything that happened there. And, because I don't think that I could. I don't think that there's anybody on this earth that would understand, or that I'd be able to describe in human words what happened to me there. But it was not peace. That was not the peace that Christ gives. Whatever it was. It was probably the longest situation that I had like that, because I would experience like a Monday like that every once in a while during the 6 years of exorcism. I would have a Monday like that. I remember there was a Monday. I specifically remember it being a Monday, because when you're sick and miserable and being tormented all the time, and then all of a sudden it stops, you remember what day it is, So it was a Monday. And, like, there'd be an hour or a day here or there, But this was, like, the longest. I think it probably was, like 8 weeks or something like that. I think. Something like that. Maybe not quite that long. Maybe, like, 5 or 6 weeks. Which felt like a long time to me. It was the biggest break that I ever had. But I still had these premonition issues, hallucinations, knowing things that were going to happen before they happened. Like, so much of what happened in that situation and after, I had already predicted from this demonic problem that I had. Just nothing good was coming from it, guys. And it led to detriment. And of course, it built me up, this false hope that builds you up, and just to tear you back down again. And at that point, like, again, I was just so exhausted, so worn down, just so done. Like, I'm hard on myself in general. But at where I'm sitting now, looking back, I'm like, my gosh, like, I know it's only God that sustained me to get to where I am now. Like, to even make it to that point where I could crawl into the door, you know, and ask for help. But it's just not the same, guys. The peace is not the same. It was all a trick. And one of the main things that always stands out to me in my life now as opposed to before, again, I have a really hard time putting some of this stuff in words, guys, is that even when I dreamt of freedom, you know, I dreamt of being liberated from the things that tormented me and all the demonic problems and whatnot, I just never saw a possibility of really being free or healed from all the damage and trauma that had taken place. It just seemed like too much. That was like the biggest thing, you know, was just how damaged I was mentally and emotionally and spiritually. You know, I just did not see that being, like, in my mind, again, always as a Catholic, I'm like, yeah, God can do anything. God can do anything he wants to. Yeah, I believe God can heal me. I believe he can change everything. In my heart, I'm like, he's not going to. Why would God change anything for me? If this is God's church, if this is Christ's church, and this is who he is, and this is what he wants from me, and this is what's happening to me, then he's not gonna free me. He's not gonna heal me. I willed myself to believe it, you know. I willed myself to believe it, but in my heart, it didn't add up. It's just not just illogical, it's unreasonable and irrational. Like I said, I could never have been liberated in Catholicism because Catholicism is not of Christ. And that which is not of Christ cannot free you. It can't. But I just could never see that. And I couldn't even dream of what that would be like. And it's not like I said, I don't have memories of things or feel sad or miss people or have anxiety here and there or whatnot. But like I said, my past is gone. What was is gone. Like, I can remember things and they don't hurt me now. They don't harm me now. I don't live in it. I don't dwell in it. Like, those wounds, they've truly been healed. Like, they might hurt for a second or something when I'm thinking about them. But ultimately, it's not like some infection that's festering within me, which is what it always was. And that's something that's impossible for any psychologist, for any shrink, for any medication, for any type of treatment that is earthly to cure somebody of. It's just not possible. Firsthand, I'm telling you, it's not possible. And he did. He liberated me from that. Jesus liberated me from that, the true Jesus. And so, yeah, that's why, you know, I'm human. I have a lot of difficulties in my life still. I struggle a lot still. Like I said, I'm learning new things every day, but my life is by no means perfect. But, like, I have no complaints. I have too much to be grateful for. I have too much to be joyful about. And I love God so much that it just takes up too much space in me to be bitter or angry about those things. Ooh, looky, 34 minutes. I'm gonna have to end this for now. I love you guys, and I'm praying for you as always, and probably do a video tomorrow, trying to address some of the questions that I've been sent. Alright.